Because you didn't need it anymore, my father said, clearing his throat like he was announcing dessert instead of erasing me. My name is Naomi Sinclair. I'm 34 years old, and somewhere along the years, my place at that table became something everyone felt entitled to redistribute. The Easter candles flickered between us, wax bending as if it were tired of standing tall. I watched the flame nearest to me tremble while my aunt let out a thin laugh that skimmed across the table like a paper cut. My cousins nodded in quiet agreement. Forks tapped against plates. Someone passed the rolls. Someone asked for more gravy. Life continued. It simply stepped over me. When I finally spoke, my voice didn't rise. It barely existed. I thought Grandma had other intentions, I said carefully. My mother rolled her eyes without hesitation. Don't be greedy in front of everyone, she muttered, as if I had asked for seconds instead of fairness. Greedy. The word lingered longer than it should have. I folded my napkin once. Then again. The linen felt too soft for what it was absorbing. Across the table, pastel decorations framed forced smiles, dyed eggs, spring flowers, performative warmth. And near the window sat a quiet man who didn't belong to our traditions. He had been writing all evening, not constantly, just occasionally, observing more than participating. When our eyes met, something inside me stilled. I gave him a small smile. The kind you give when you stop trying to defend yourself. He closed his notebook. The scrape of his chair against the floor sounded louder than the blessing we had said earlier. I'm afraid that won't be possible, he said calmly. Every fork froze midair. My father blinked. And you are? He asked, forcing a laugh that didn't land. The quiet man adjusted his jacket. My name is Victor Hale. I handle estate oversight. My brother, Caleb, leaned back in his chair with a smirk. This is a family matter. Victor opened his notebook and flipped to a marked page. Actually, he replied gently, it became a legal matter 3 weeks ago. The room shifted. Even the candle flames seemed to hesitate. My mother tapped her wine glass with one painted nail. Is this some sort of joke? No, Victor said. This is documentation. The small envelope resting on my lap felt heavier. I hadn't opened it. I didn't need to. My father's jaw tightened. Documentation of what? Victor reached into his jacket and placed a thin folder on the table beside the glazed ham. A drop of sauce touched its corner. Margaret Sinclair's final amendment, he said. Signed, witnessed, filed. My aunt waved her hand dismissively. She wasn't fully aware near the end. Victor's voice remained steady. She was very specific. Caleb leaned forward now. The smirk was gone. Specific about what? Victor looked directly at him. About who showed up, he said, and who didn't. Silence pressed into the room in it. I could hear Grandma's house in my memory. The ticking clock. The back door that stuck in winter. The way she hummed while folding laundry. I had been there every Sunday, even when no one else came. This is ridiculous, my mother snapped. You're embarrassing her. For the first time that evening, I felt taller than the table. Would you like me to read the amendment aloud? Victor asked calmly. There's no need, Caleb said quickly. Later, my father added later, the word they always used when they meant never. Victor remained standing. The amendment states that any redistribution discussed publicly, without the beneficiary present, triggers immediate enforcement. My father flushed. Enforcement of what? Victor turned a page with deliberate care. Transfer of temporary control to an external trustee. My aunt scoffed. She would never do that. She did, I said quietly. Every head turned toward me. She told me she was tired of being spoken for. My mother stared at me like I had betrayed something sacred. You went behind our backs. Behind your backs? As if I had ever stood beside you. Victor glanced at his watch. By my count, this discussion already qualifies. Candle wax spilled over the holder and pooled onto the tablecloth. Effective immediately. Victor said, "The property is frozen." Frozen. Caleb shot to his feet, his chair hitting the wall behind him. Legally and deliberately. Victor replied. The room smelled like sweet bread, and ham and something sour beneath it. You planned this. My mother accused. I nodded. I did. That seemed to hurt her more than the paperwork. My father lowered his voice. Naomi, be reasonable, double quotes reasonable, when they laughed, when they nodded, when they erased me. There's more, Victor said, tapping the final page. But this clause changes tonight. What clause? Caleb demanded. Victor looked at me. I nodded once. The clause documenting intent, he said, and patterns. This is Easter, my mother whispered weakly. You're ruining Easter. I almost laughed, and instead, I said, read the personal section. Victor cleared his throat. To my granddaughter Naomi, who sat beside me when the house was quiet, who repaired what broke without asking who should pay. The room stilled completely. This assigns permanent oversight of the property and its income to the person named here. That's not fair, Caleb muttered. Fairness, Victor said softly, was not the metric. For the first time that night, I exhaled fully. My father looked at me differently. Not as the daughter who should compromise, but as someone he no longer understood. So what happens now? He asked quietly. Victor gathered his papers. Now the trustee assumes responsibility. Rent, taxes, access. Nothing changes without approval. You always had to win, Caleb said bitterly. I reached forward and pinched the candle flame between my fingers. It stung just enough to feel real. I didn't win, I said calmly. I stayed. Victor nodded to me before leaving. No one followed him. And in the silence that remained, I realized something simple. They weren't angry because they lost the property. They were angry because they lost control of the story. The chatter resumed in brittle fragments. Glasses clinked. Forks scraped plates. But the air had shifted. I picked up the envelope Victor had left behind. Inside were Grandma's letters, financial notes, renovation plans in her handwriting, proof of years I had been unseen, yet trusted. I placed the documents in my bag and stood. My mother's eyes were already calculating, rewriting how this would be told to others. Let her. I walked past the table, past the pastel decorations, past the version of myself they preferred. I stepped outside into the cool spring evening. For the first time that night, I felt untouchable, not because I had taken revenge, but because I had finally stopped shrinking. They would whisper, reframe, rewrite, let them. I no longer needed their permission to exist. I looked up at the sky, wide, open, endless, and I smiled.